So a couple of words that people often confuse are sex and intimacy. They've got different meanings, right? So you can have sex with intimacy, you can have sex without intimacy, you can have intimacy with sex, you can have intimacy without sex. But let's have a bit of a chat about sexual styles and intimacy styles as a way of kind of clarifying the difference, but also as a way of exemplifying how we might support clients in identifying areas of difference that they can harness as learning opportunities to grow more into variety and their potential.
So figure out what their sexual styles are and what their intimacy styles are.
Yeah, yeah. And so 3 main sexual styles. So we've been looking at Moshe's theory of sexual styles. So the 3 main sexual styles he presents are trance, which is sex for sensation, engagement, which is sex for connection, and role, which is sex for expression. Do you know your sexual styles? What's your sexual style?
So my favorite sexual style used to be sex for connection, partner engagement. That was what I used to have sex for. And then as I got more connected to my body and to my sensation, then sex to feel came online. And I think now I sometimes, I think they kind of compete with each other, but they're pretty much, you know, they're both my favorites. And role is something that I'm not very good at and I find challenging, and it's something that I'm working on and trying to bring more of it into my life.
Yeah. I think part of it is people often misunderstand role, and when they hear that sexual style, sometimes they think of role play.
Yeah.
Which is one small aspect of role. I think role is something that we are often embodying and often in the process of, even when we're not aware that we're doing it. So, you know, so for example, when people show up erotically with each other, you know, maybe one person's the instigator, they're the one who always starts it, and the other one is the one that goes along with what's been started. Or
the instigator and follower.
Yeah, or maybe one person prefers to be more dominant when the other person prefers to be submissive. That's kind of a more obvious role, but other kind of roles are things like the adored and the adorer, which, and people might not know they're doing that, but often people are doing that. There's 2 people in a relationship and one of them gets really charged by adoring the other and the other one gets charged by being adored. So those kind of things are a role, you know, the different aspects of self that come out in our eroticism. My main sexual styles are role, engagement, trance. In that order? In that order. Trance has become a lot more interesting to me since I've used practice to go more deeply into all the styles.
But role would be your favorite.
But without role, trance is nothing to me. Yeah, so if I'm in erotic roles that I'm enjoying, any kind of trancey things, all kinds of variety and sensation become interesting.
But if you're not going into the role...
Yeah, like I'm not the sort of person who's just going to enjoy. I mean, I could perhaps learn, but I haven't been interested in learning. To just enjoy sensation for sensation's sake.
Yeah. I learned that. I enjoyed that very much. Yeah. Differences,
yeah. So let's look at differences. So, for example, if we had a client, which was a couple, 2 people in relationship with each other, and one of them was very trance, and one of them was very engagement. So one person was really in it for sensation, and one person was really in it for connection. So that presents a difference, yeah?
Yeah.
And
a challenging difference.
And as somatic sex coaches, we want to harness those differences as learning opportunities, which is really important because they are learning opportunities, and they offer the opportunity for each individual and the relationship to grow. Mm-hmm. But without harnessing that opportunity, without taking it on board, it's a potential way to grow apart.
Yeah.
Because that person who's into the engagement, if their partner's just into the sensation, to focus on your own sensation, you're not focusing much on the
They probably
other
feel a bit
person.
abandoned and not loved.
Yeah, and then the person who's into the sensation, they probably think, what's all this?
Well, I guess to come out of sensation into engagement will be challenging and will probably kind of ruin their buzz.
Yeah, exactly.
But what helped me to get more comfortable with role was to create situations with people who were good at role play.
Yeah.
And even though I knew I wasn't going to enjoy it as much as I would other things, I kind of came into it with just thinking, oh well, it's not going to be that great for me, or I'm not going to have the best time ever, but I'm just going to be open to trying it out. I'll play in someone else's playground, in a sense.
Yeah, and it's also the importance of kind of recognizing what hot sex is, but recognizing how stuck we get in hot sex. This is the thing that really charges me, really turns me on, which often means that I'm unaware of the wide universe of other things which we might categorize as warm sex. You know, maybe it's not hot sex, but warm sex.
Yeah.
And because of the way the nervous system works, if we just stay on that hot sex thing, we're going to get very habitual in what we do. We're going to have certain behaviors hardwired into our bodies. So by going into warmer sex and learning to enjoy that aspect of our eroticism, we have the endless capacity to keep expanding our neural circuitry for pleasure. And so it's very important in terms of continuously expanding into pleasure. So the trance person in relationship with the engagement person in relationship with the trance person, what learning opportunity might that offer? What might they practice to grow?
So the trans person could practice some engagement practices, which so a couple of things come to mind. The engagement person could tell the trans person some of their favorite things, or what they imagine would be their favorite thing, or what they would like perhaps, and then they could play with that in the space. Or they could go to a coach and get some engagement practices. Lots of tantric practices are great for partner engagement, and lots of things like looking each other's in the eye, hugging for a long time.
A couple of engagement practices that have a bit more sensation with them are things like yab yam, that tantric position of one person sitting in the other person's lap and holding and breathing together. You've got engagement and sensation.
So you're thinking combining those two.
It's one potential pathway. And like practicing absorbing touch is a way to feel connected, but feel connected in sensation for the absorber rather than the person allowing.
Yeah. So creating some practices that combine both of those things. So there's something for everyone.
Yeah, it's one potential pathway.
Yeah. And so this is what the trans person could do for the engagement person, and what would you do the other way around? Same thing, a similar thing?
Similar things, I guess mapping, so like doing all kinds of touch activities for the engagement person, so that they
touch and communication,
like mapping each other. And it's also about supporting the people in creating a practice space for themselves. So you know that that in order for sex to keep growing, we've got to, just in the same way as that in order for my body to stay fit and healthy, I've got to carve out a part of my day for my for my practice, we're going to the fitness center, and let's say if couples can carve out time for practice rather than sex, where they try these different things out that maybe don't feel great or don't flow well at first, then that's how we start to integrate new experiences into the body.
Yeah, that certainly helped me with having more role in my life, is creating those practice spaces where I didn't have any expectations or any particular agenda, and I knew I was going to be kind of outside of my comfort zone a little bit, but I chose things to do that were, interesting for me and maybe a little bit challenging, but not too challenging that I wasn't present for them.
Yeah. So if you go to the resource bank, there are several engagement practices there, as well as several trance activities. So have a look at those videos and get a sense of some of the types of things that you could coach people in.
So what about intimacy styles?
What about intimacy styles? This is an interesting one, like, because people do have different intimacy styles. So one example is, two people, a couple sitting having dinner and watching TV and watching Netflix together. One person, that's a really intimate thing that they're really experiencing the other person because it's part of their intimacy styles. They're like, oh, I love sitting here together, hanging out, having a meal and watching Netflix. Whereas if it's not the other person's intimacy style and hasn't been communicated, they're not having intimacy. They're not having together time. They're wondering what we're doing.
Yeah.
I've come to see you. I've come to spend time with you, and we're not spending time together. We're watching Netflix. So it's an important area for people to discuss. What are our intimacy styles? How do I experience intimacy? How do you experience intimacy?
And what are some intimacy styles that come to mind?
So for some people, it's quality time together. It's being focused together. For some people, it's discussion. It's
conversation.
Talking, conversation.
And,
For some people, it might be no conversation, being quiet, but perhaps it's going for a walk together, walking in the park, holding hands. Those type of things feel intimate for people. Having meals together feels intimate for some people. Sharing some wine together. Doing rock climbing together, doing our kind of more active activities together. For some people feels intimate, and some people it's a real solo activity.
Yeah.
Any others come to
like
mind?
Cuddles.
Yeah.
For me, that's a lot. That's intimacy. I think sometimes, definitely sometimes for me, sex can be intimacy. I want to have sex with the person because I'm longing for intimacy with them, not necessarily because I want to have sex with them, if that might make sense. And that can be a bit confusing.
Yeah, so if that were true, the person you're having the sex and intimacy with, if they're not thinking of it the same way, it might not flow well.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't, because sometimes I'm not sure why I want to have sex with them, and I have to think, actually, do I want intimacy? Do I want sex? Do I want a bit of both? But, and then it's not they might not be their intimacy style. Their intimacy style might be lying around and cuddling. So for them, they're not getting any intimacy because I'm wanting to do something else. Yeah,
and I think with intimacy styles, it's about having a conversation with your clients and getting some information.
Yeah.
And then for them to work out when they might have a go at each other. So if you want to hang around and have cuddles, let's hang around and have cuddles. And if we want to go for a walk in the park together, let's go for a walk in the park together.
Because that's an easy one to share.
It's an easy one to share. And it's an easy one to kind of grow into when you know what it's about.
Exactly.
What it's for. Yeah.